you geeks! By Grace and Banners Fallen was released as a separate novella before A Memory of Light. Therefore, I can justify releasing a separate review for it. This prologue is not the longest prologue of the Wheel of Time, but it still rocks.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
In the tradition of prologues past, this short story carries so many important secondary plot lines. These plots and characters just didn't fit into my Towers of Midnight review, and probably wouldn't fit into my Memory of Light review. Yet, I have comments. So, I must break down these characters' world-building magic system and plots. Yes, I have finished A Memory of Light, but this video won't spoil anything beyond the prologue. Talmanes. Now I get why everyone thinks he's so cool. Or rather, hot. Gotta admit, in the early books, Talmanes didn't really leave an impression on me. He was just there to argue with Nalisian and be a nobleman. I detected a growing sense of sass once Sanderson took over, though it was not completely out of character. Talmanes may be a Cairienan noble, but he also decided to follow Matt into battle, so he couldn't have been completely cold and calculating.
I hate to say anything good about that long-winded jackanapes, but he does know the short way to start a war.
Now, on the eve of Tarman Bloody Gaiden, Talmanes' cool Cairienan composure is slipping as he faces death and the eyeless.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've heard worse.
I would anticipate after a stunt like that. He, like the Kandori Towermen last book, is super dead. Aviendha has a character arc again. We got glimpses of it back in The Gathering Storm. Roidion last book was magnificent. Viewing through her eyes, the once vibrant Aiel being brought low by their own pride. A pride that Aviendha perpetuated by her own open and hypocritical disdain for wetlanders and wetland customs.
You expect me to get into that and wet myself all over? Not me.
Nakomi, whoever she is, was right to point out that the wetlands must be just as challenging as the Threefold Land if the Threefold Land was mere preparation. I wish we saw Aviendha learn this lesson while she was spending time with Elayne and the kin for 4 books, but late is better than never, provided that it's not too late to save the Aiel from their own folly. Androl and Pevara. It's been a while since we've been to the Black Tower and checked in on the Ishamael.
Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die.
Yet, have the 7 books I've been waiting to see Logain, Tovane, and Sora Grady work together to overthrow Taim been in vain? I suppose it would be hard for Sanderson to write whatever it is that Tovane and Logain have for each other. Jordan had a disturbing ability to make toxic relationships fun to read. Instead, we are getting Androl and Pevara, who are terse, but almost too congenial to belong in Randland. The Pevara from the Tower wanted warders, but we've seen how Greens train their warders. So I never got the impression that she thought of men as equals. Though if I'm spared another book of a woman grooming a man, then I'm not going to complain. Then there's Androl, who's been everywhere.
Travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
He's just the sort of Sanderson everyman. He's going to make the best of dreadful circumstances, and everyone can get behind him, including me. I like them as characters. They're the odd couple, stuck in essentially a haunted village being run by a newly minted Forsaken. It's chilling and so intriguing. Sinbane.
Guess who's back again.
Lanfear's back again. She does not take breakups well. Did she really expect that she'd just flip her eyelashes and Luz would come back? Luz sealed her in the boar, and the last time she saw Rand, she attacked him. But he couldn't kill her, so it must be true love.
Well, you know how men are. They think no means yes, and get lost means take me, I'm yours.
I guess the first time Luz broke up with her, she bore a hole into the Dark One's prison. So hiring Slayer to kill Rand is sort of underachieving for her. Moradin still has her mind in a trap. Maybe she can't do more. Though it's also surprising she got this far, since Moradin bail-fired the last Forsaken who took a shot at Rand. Slayer. It was nice to get some clarification on these two. There's Slayer, whose father was the Dark Friend who betrayed Malkier, leaving his wife and child to wander in the Blight. So he has a very good excuse for thinking serving the Dark One is a great idea. Though for all his reputation, he's only killed a few wolves, some of the Black Sisters in Tyr, and that one couple in Winter's Heart. Then there's also Luke, who was Tigraine's brother, who went to the Blight because an Aes Sedai told him to, and then he just decided to go join the Dark One for reasons?
Something is pulling me. It's so magnetic. My body is moving, unsure where I'm headed. All of my senses have left me defenseless. The darkness around me is promising vengeance.
For all his puffery, Luke actually killed Rand's father. Though at the time the Aiel War was still fresh, and killing Aiel was hardly unique. So why did he sell his soul to the Dark One? Arms race. In Towers of Midnight, we saw the invention of cannons. I mean, dragons.
We filled his head with cannonballs and powdered his behind. And when we touched the powder off, the gator lost his mind.
Aludra, Mat, and Elayne are all likable enough, but they only have the slightest clue what they are doing. Breaking ground for the firearm revolution, which will eventually destroy Andor under the Raven Empire and kill off the last of Rand's Aiel line. Egwene once dreamed that Mat would bowl down men in droves with cannonballs. But being Egwene, she didn't do anything with that information. That was probably for the best, because if Egwene had told Mat not to invent cannons, Mat would have probably discovered nuclear fusion by now.
How about global thermonuclear war?
This series spent 13 books worrying about how an axe is only a weapon, while a hammer is a tool. Thus, it's quite a shift in how lightly By Grace and Banners Fallen treats the dragons. Of course, it's better that the Shadow not get the dragons, and Aludra fighting Trollocs with grenades is just wonderful. So the turnaround from treating dragons like devastating weapons to merely explosive tools is quite abrupt. But that's also the genius of the final scene, using the dragons to blow a hole to relative safety. Shame of the Aiel. My friend and DM is a few books behind. He wants to create an Aiel male channeler character for D&D. He admires that Aiel pride, the I can go slay the Dark One myself attitude. And I'm looking forward to when he finds out that all the Aiel male channelers are evil. These last books show how the Aiel pride is what gets the Aiel into trouble. Even Rand, the only Aiel with the best reason to believe he could spit in the Dark One's eye alone, needed help.
Pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame.
I do like the turned Aiel with sharpened teeth. I suppose their filed teeth and madness is where we get the legends of red-haired vampires. I don't blame the Aiel for supplying the Dark One with an army of mad male channelers, yet it's symptomatic of the Aiel's inability to work well with others, which is the true source of their problems. The lesson that Aviendha, Rand, and even the wise ones are learning now, the visions show, will soon be forgotten. I can just see Aviendha's careless future words about Wetlander's softness teaching her children to disdain Elayne's children.
Teach your children well.
This disdain will form that rivalry that we saw fuel the lies which will start the next last battle against the Shan-Chan, a battle the Aiel and Andor cannot win.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.
The Forsaken. Ah, yes, ye old Forsaken committee meeting. So nice of them to let us all know who is going to be doing what, more or less, in the upcoming book. I suppose I should mention that Taim has been promoted to Forsaken. And in fact, he and Demandred are two very different people. I don't have strong feelings about this. I know that many people thought that Taim and Demandred were the same person.
You think that your client, one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in the world, is secretly a vigilante who spends his nights beating criminals to a pulp with his bare hands?
Including my reading buddy, so maybe my opinion will change when he gets to this reveal, since he has sunk theorizing time into figuring out Taim's true identity. I spent all of my time trying to figure out who all the voices in Rand's head belonged to.
How many kids you got in there?
Though in hindsight, if Demandred hadn't brought Asha'man to attack at Dumai's Wells, what exactly was he gloating about at Shell Ghul at the end of Lord of Chaos? Caemlyn burns. That army of Trollocs, which went missing back in Knife of Dreams, has finally reappeared. I think that this is the best argument against Egwene immediately forgiving Varen on her deathbed for being Black Aja. In all fairness, the last time Varen saw Mat was at the beginning of The Dragon Reborn, where he was on his deathbed for taking the dagger against Aes Sedai advice. He was also bound to the Horn of Valir against Aes Sedai advice. So handing him a letter with instructions not to open would have been a perfect way in her mind to ensure that he would open it. Why couldn't she trust Mat? In trying to trick him, she doomed them all. Though if he had stayed, would have he saved Moiraine? Which is more important, I wonder? There were plenty of other things that conspired to keep the Trolloc attack a surprise. Elayne could have told Matt about the invasion she'd heard mentioned in her Black Aja interrogation, or maybe Elayne could have contacted Egwene about her Black Aja captives and asked if the Tower had any methods for dealing with them. The invasion of Caemlyn is just something that the wheel totally willed.
So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel.
It's the only Forsaken plan which wasn't Moradin's to actually work, presuming Moradin wasn't lying to the Forsaken about who ordered the Trollocs into the ways. Now thousands are dead, along with Linny, I guess. For the sake of Linny, Egwene should hold her sympathy for people who are actually actively working against the Dark One instead of snapping at them. Now that the longest night is over, the dragon and the Armorlin will meet on the morrow. Will the dragon gain his peace, or will Aviendha's mission to save the Aiel make everything go terribly wrong? Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you would like to see more. Your patronage is greatly appreciated.